Hey everyone, and welcome to the Reload Podcast. Along with Nathan Gilsleider and Marshall Scott, I'm Justin Southwell. Guys, it's been a little while. Took a little bit of a hiatus. Feel like we earned it. We deserve the break based on that performance. It's like, what are we going to talk about here? Which we will talk about, but the beatdown in Lubbock, it was pretty rough. But we were kind of talking a little bit before we got started, and it was like, seems like it's been a while. And I kind of flash back to, Billy Madison, whenever he's like, what day is it? And Norm Macdonald's character is like, October? That's how it felt just now. It's like, and it checks out. It's October. So it works.
Almost November.
Yeah.
Almost November.
It's flying through.
I turned the heater on today. First time of the year. Of the season. Turn the heater on.
It's a good choice. It's pretty little chilly today.
We did the same. It was like, it's the weird part of the year where you got the heater on and then it gets way too hot. So you turn the AC back on. But I like to sleep with it pretty cold. 65, 66.
See, I was going to say, I read an article. 66 is optimal temperature for body for actual sleeping. Very few people get there, but I could do it. Big fan of cold rooms.
Acclimate yourself.
Big fan.
Big fans help.
I see what you did there.
Ooh, football? Was that what we're talking about?
Nope, we're not there yet. I'm sure a lot of the listeners who are watching on YouTube, a lot of the viewers, are wondering why I look like Ted Lasso right now. Guys, this is my everyday. I wear this all the time. It's cold. It's a little chilly. Got a sweater on now. But in reality, we did do a little trick-or-treating tonight at our church event. They had the festival, so I figured it's cold enough, might as well wear this. And then people were like, hey, Ted Lasso? I was like, you got him. And then that made me think.
Believe.
It made me think about why nobody has brought up Ted Lasso's name in this coaching search. I think he'd be a great head coach for Oklahoma State.
He got the Shockers rolling up at Wichita State. Close proximity. If you can recruit to Wichita, you can recruit to Stillwater. I don't see why not.
Naming all the other G6 coaches, forgot about our guy.
Oh man, yeah, good call.
Well, we do need to talk maybe a little bit about the Texas Tech game. Does anybody want to share their thoughts? Marshall, you put out your 10 thoughts as per usual, but that had to been rough.
Yeah, it was. So this was the first game I didn't go to since Colorado, which just so happened to be the last time that they were shut out. So I'm going to Lawrence this weekend for what it's worth. But yeah, the game was basically over 3 minutes in. Tech returns the opening kickoff. Oklahoma State goes 3 and out. 3 and out. Punt gets blocked. Return to like the 26. They score on the first play. The game at that point it's no more. There wasn't much way around it. Sam Jackson played. Zane Flores did not. It sort of sounds like, I don't know if you guys got this from Meacham Talking Monday, sort of sounds like Zane's going to play this weekend. Didn't want to throw him out there in that spot. I think he said it'd be like taking 1 step forward and 2 steps back. No, Walter's got some like first half run because nothing was happening offensively. And we talked a little bit about this before the show started, but the defense is getting better. What does that do for anybody long term? I don't know. But I went back because this marked 4 games for Todd Grantham, 4 games for Clint Bowen. And the team is much, much, much better stopping the run. And that's been killing Oklahoma State for going back to last year as well. I think that was like the worst run defense in school history last year. So they went from under Meacham allowing 213 rushing yards a game to 4 games through Clint Bowen, 110.5. So like that's a significant increase. They're sacking the quarterback a little bit more. But I mean, the grand scheme of things is the football team is not that great. Just some other things that I had throughout thoughts. It wasn't 66-6. So even though Oklahoma State not very good at football this year, it wasn't as bad as that 66-6 beat down back in 2011. I thought Taj McCoy popped a little bit, and then give Trent Howland the football. Somebody give Trent Howland the football every down if that's what it takes. But Meacham was asked about him a little bit after the game, and he said something along the lines of like the word on the street when they got there was that he was a little soft, and Meacham praised him after the game. So hopefully we keep thinking this is when Trent Howland's really going to take off. Hopefully this is actually the time that they start giving Trent hell in the football. But yeah, those were a bunch of scattered thoughts in a game that really didn't matter in the long term of things. But man, that was a rough watch.
This is what bad football teams do, right? You give them easy points. You give them, you let them, you fumble going in and they go take it back for a touchdown, or you let special teams just takes you right out of the game early on. And I think one thing that a lot of times people miss when injuries start piling up or when people leave, the first thing that is going to take a hit is always going to be special teams, because the guys that are your special teams studs are now playing 50 snaps a game, right? And so now they're no longer your L1, L2 starter or whatever it may be, right? Now you've got these young guys that are now taking every single snap on special teams, or even they're in the game changing position on special teams, right? You're funneling certain coverages to certain guys to go make these tackles on special teams or whatever it may be. Or you have a third string lineman that's now is the up back, or there's all different things now. And so this is what happens when you start bad teams find ways to lose rather than finding ways to win. And that's kind of what you saw. Obviously, Texas Tech is extremely talented, right? Ton of team speed, right? They very good schemes. You saw some of the talent. I thought maybe their offense was a little underwhelming, but they were on QB3 also. And some of their wide receivers made some great plays. Whenever I looked at that game overall, it's a little disappointing because you didn't really give yourself a chance. You can't spot a team like that 21 points. Heck, we can't spot anybody 21 points right now. But it just kind of was like a culmination of where a bad football team is at. And it's not from an effort standpoint, right? It's still pretty impressive to see a lot of these guys fighting and working for each other and doing those things. But couldn't agree more, Marshall. If there's any success going to be had this season, is going to be on the ground. Rodney Fields, when healthy, and Trent Howland need to dominate our offense. This is the only little sliver of hope that we have on the offensive end. We cannot and have not to this point proven an ability to consistently throw the ball on the outside. And the only way I see that happening moving forward is through play action, because you've established a run game. We just cannot get away from it. This is the first game I thought Coach Johns kind of got out of it. I think it's kind of like he almost was like, hey, these guys are really good. I don't know how we're going to move the ball, so I'm going to try to think of maybe some different ways rather than just sticking to the little bit of success that we've had. And it got away from him real quick. And so obviously the outcome was not surprising, unfortunately. And like you said, there's some things here. The defensive line has improved week over week, and it's really impressive. And these young guys on the back end, you've got some redshirt freshmen, true freshmen. There's going to be more freshmen playing this week, as Coach said. It's just big plays are going to happen. But you can keep yourself in ball games if you don't get dominated in the run game, and you can run the ball. And we're showing signs of both of those things. And so we've got to lean into it on both sides. And so, yeah, I mean, that's kind of like my takeaways from it. Obviously, Tech's a very good team. I think when they have QB1 in there, if they're able to get their other edge healthy at the end of the season, I mean, this is a playoff football team. I really do believe that. I think they're the best team in the Big 12. I do think they're better than BYU. But I think that'll be a great Big 12 championship game. Well, actually, they're going to play each other next week, I believe.
Since he's still 5-0 too.
And 5, right? Since he's good. But you brought up a good point when you were talking about the difference between the first 4 and the last 4 games or whatever it may be. You look at the last 4 games that we've played in these rushing attacks, you're talking about Cincinnati, Houston, Texas Tech in there. Like, those are 3 of the best offenses in the Big 12 and some of the best in the country. So even more impressive what he's been able to do purely based off of coaching, because you've got guys sitting out, you got guys hurt, and he's still able to get this out of those guys.
Do we want to talk on any additional thoughts about the quarterbacks for the Texas Tech game, or
you mean like moving forward?
Well, just based on what we saw in this last game.
I think I'm cool with Zane playing. Like I said, the the last couple of pods, I think I'd sort of rather wait for the bye week that's after this week. But there's just not been a whole lot happening offensively. So give Kevin Johns, a quarterback who came into this year expected to play quarterback, and maybe that can sort of help progress the offense a little bit moving forward. Maybe some Rodney, Trent Howland, like RPOs, maybe that those become a little bit more of a threat. I don't know. But yeah, I'm perfectly fine with, at this point, if they think that Zane is the way forward, let's give it a shot, because nothing's really working in the passing game, and that's tough to play football without some of that.
Yeah, I agree. I do think if Zane is healthy, he probably needs to get the chance to go here and prove himself in another opportunity. He did bring up Haas and some updates there, and how essentially they're going to wait till after the bye week, and they're going to have some tough discussions with himself, his family, and Coach Meacham, and whatever that entails. We've talked ad nauseum about the pros and cons, and this is not an easy decision for Haas and what it could mean for his future, what it could mean for his future at Oklahoma State, depending on who we hire, what he wants to do. And I do think Zane, if healthy, deserves a start. But I'm fully okay with using our other quarterback in some packages,
like the Arizona game where he had a couple series. I'm cool with that.
Yeah, exactly. So I do think that may even be one of our better chances to keep the run game rolling a little bit, right? Even just that ability to hold that backside linebacker or defensive end by half a person, that opens up that inside run game quite a bit. So, but yeah, if Zane's healthy, I think it's time to give him an opportunity with Coach Johns, because we haven't seen Zane with Coach Johns, right? So who knows?
I'd like to see it too. I think, again, applaud the efforts by Sam Jackson. And not that, again, we're not expecting to win, but our last couple of offensive performances have been some of the worst we've seen in school history from the modern era. As far as I'm concerned, it's to the point where we need to have a change at quarterback to be able to continue to press forward. So with Zane, let's assume Zane is going to start in Lawrence. Do you think OSU can be competitive against the Jayhawks?
I think that there is a shot. Kyle Cox wrote something for us this morning, and like Kansas is pretty average statistically among Big 12 teams. The only teams below them in the Big 12 standings that Oklahoma State has played this season is Arizona. So like they've played Cincinnati, who's up at the top of the league. Houston's up at the top of the league. Texas Tech's up at the top of the league. So I'm not saying that Oklahoma State would be beating these teams that are closer to the bottom, but I think there's at least a little bit more hope for competitiveness if they can establish the run, if they can continue to stop the run. I think Jalen Daniels had a pretty rough Sunflower Showdown. If they can make him throw and make him make those decisions and see if he's better this week, then who knows? Maybe they got a shot. But I think they've got a much better shot this week, obviously, than how I've been feeling the last couple.
I do. I see a clear path that you can make this a very competitive football game. To your point, Marshall, you just brought it up. Daniels hasn't been great this year. He's turned the ball over a ton. Everything that they've done on offense since Leipold has been there is predicated on the run. It's predicated on the quarterback being able to run RPO. They've had really good running backs there for several years now. And that's the one thing on defense that we've been able to consistently improve at. And so if you can stop the run against Kansas and put Daniels in some tougher situations, there's plays to be made. And their defense is okay, just like Marshall pointed out, right? Pretty average across the board, not terrible, not great. So, I mean, I do see that. They're at a point in their season, they had some higher hopes. Bills built a brand new stadium. They thought they maybe were going to be competing and maybe some guys up there. That just hasn't happened. So who knows how they're going to come out with it. For years and years and years, it was, you got to bring your own energy when you go to Kansas. Right now, it's, you got to bring your own energy when you play Oklahoma State, because you're expecting to beat them by 24 or whatever it may be, right? So it's very similar. A team that just got absolutely stomped in a rivalry game, seasons that is not going how they expect. There's a clear path. I'm not saying Oklahoma State's going to win, but there is a path there to, hey, if this happens, and this is kind of one of our strengths, one of the few ones that we have, and this is one of their weaknesses, hey, we can do this. Don't kill yourself in special teams. Don't kill yourself with penalties. Make Kansas earn it. Do those type of things. It's not. We were right there with Cincinnati, right, for 3+ quarters. I know that was at home and so forth, but I'm just saying some of these scores are a touch misleading. I'm not saying Tech was, but you know what I'm saying? The Houston game, the Cincinnati game, and those teams are significantly better than Kansas, in my opinion. So we'll see. I mean, we could get routed again, but I do see a path here that it could be a pretty competitive football game.
Kansas has played against Cincinnati. They lost at home 37-34. So we do have them as a common opponent. OSU is giving up 43.2 points per game in conference games. So I'm not counting that Oregon game in there, but Kansas has been averaging 27.2 points per game in their conference games, but their last 3 games here against UCF, Texas Tech, and Kansas State, they've scored 27, 17, and 17, averaging 20.3 points per game in their most recent games. So as bad as OSU has been, there are still some bright spots, and I'm going to applaud the efforts for them to not give up, because it could have turned into what we saw in Eugene, where it was, 8 3-and-outs, I think. It didn't seem like that was the case at Texas Tech. Defense was able to hold Tech below their season averages in some statistical categories, I believe. So can OSU keep that momentum up? Can they hold Kansas below some of their averages? And if so, this 24.5 point spread or whatever it is up to now, it's like, I obviously don't have enough confidence in OSU to say I'm going to bet on this game that OSU is going to cover. But in the same vein, I don't have the confidence that Kansas would be able to cover on their end. So they've had chances to give up and they haven't. And I think whenever you have potentially Zane coming back, potentially Haas coming back, things could turn up. We're not expecting them to win, but we're expecting them to be competitive.
I like that. Yeah, I think they can be in this game. Now, does this where it gets away from them is if the Cincinnati happens where you fail to 4th down, you give up a big play touchdown, you throw a pick 6 in the end zone, and then all of a sudden what was once a close game is no longer a close game. Can't have that, obviously. That's where like something like this could get away from them, is there's a string of big plays that sort of go the opposite direction. But if they can avoid that and find some success in the run game, it can be competitive. Yeah, like you guys, I would not. Whenever we do our predictions on the site on Friday, I'm not going to pick Oklahoma State to win. Just I haven't seen it happen in a really long time. So, but yeah, I think given the opponents a little bit closer to their skill level, it seems like I think they've got a better shot of being competitive, and that feels painful to say.
Yeah, and I kind of want to back up just a little bit, and it's in regards to this game and games moving forward. I want to make sure that we as fans don't change our standard, because as soon, and I mean that in a positive way, Coach Gundy and all the players in the last 20 years have worked so hard, and rightfully so, to have the standard of what Oklahoma State football should be and could be, right? What good football looks like, what winning football looks like, what you expect out of your athletes and your coaches. And when you go through losing like this, teammates, teams, players, coaches, fans, all involved, your standard's like, hey, let's do this, and then we'll call it a win. It's like, no, we need to continue to hold ourselves here, because whenever the new coach comes and those type of things, you're not completely rebuilding what good looks like, right? And we're not that far removed from it. So, and I even said it just now, but I'm just saying, like, even going into this Kansas game, like, a loss is a loss, right? This is what good football looks like. Good football is you win the special teams. Good football is you don't beat yourself. Good football is you don't turn it over on the road, right? You go do these things. And so I don't know why. I just kind of felt the need to say that, because when you're going through these losing spells and things like that, and we want to bounce back as a university and fans and things like that, like Coach Gundy worked way too hard to raise the bar at Oklahoma State to like 8-9 wins being what we expect, and a 10-win season is well within the reason. And those things, I understand factors have changed, but as a university and as a fan base, we don't need to drop our standards, because we want to be where we should be and where we can be. And this season stinks, and I hope we don't let it bring us down to where next year's like, hey, if we can just win a couple, like, we're better than that, and these guys are better than that, and there's players on this team that are going to help us win a lot of football games in the next couple years. I believe that. And so let's keep holding our standard to what Oklahoma State football should be, and what those guys before us and after us worked so hard to raise the bar at Oklahoma State. And I don't know why I felt like saying that, but I just kind of felt like we've been kind of getting beat down here as fans, and people trying to do this pod. It's like just holding on to a sliver. But it's like, hey, let's not fall back. Let's stay right here, and we're going to be all right.
It's a good call. I wonder a little bit about the new coach coming in and setting his standard, whatever that is. I would imagine it's very similar to what Coach Gundy's built up over the last 20 years, but I wonder what it looks like. Cowboy culture and a different interpretation of whatever that means. Or do you think it's pretty similar? And then maybe a follow-up hypothetical question to that. Let's say it's Zach Robinson, for example. What are the expectations as far as the number of games we would win? First year head coach, are we expecting, hey, make a bowl? Or is it a little bit more realistic? Like, are we okay with 4 wins? How do we set that expectation?
First, I was just going to make a quick quip. All the discipline and toughness, like signage, what happens to that? Is the next coach going to be cool with that, or is he going to have his own little saying that he wants up on the walls? I don't know. Yeah, no, the standard should not be 4 wins. You can flip teams really quick. I think it's probably going to be portal dependent on sort of what the expectations for next season look like. But I imagine in late spring, we're all going to be like, oh yeah, Oklahoma State's all the way back, 10 wins again, and then we'll sort of see where it goes. But yeah, I think right whenever the next guy takes over, I think the fan base's expectations, just because of success, doesn't necessarily look the same for this particular team, as it has some others. I think that instantly resets right after this, and that's sort of the gleaming beacon of hope that everybody's looking to right now, I think. And I think it's getting the fan base through it a little bit. I imagine that's what makes it so much cooler for the players, especially those players who, like, this is it for them, like a Parker Robertson, who's walked on, did all this hard work, gets to this mountaintop, and now the team's sort of crumbling. That can't feel good. So the internal motivation for those guys to keep going, I think, is sick. But I think the fan base right now is just like, yeah, if this team could get a little better, that's cool. But everybody's sort of looking forward.
Honestly, I think like the greatest sign of respect to Coach Gundy is you continue and make those things a part of what Cowboy football is, right? I mean, I think honestly, like, it's kind of getting a little off track, but I think one of the biggest missteps that like a university that Wisconsin has done is they've got away from what made Wisconsin, right? Big boys up front, run the football, right? Cold weather, Pittsburgh Steeler. Like, some of these teams and some of these places know how to win, what it takes.
I mean, global warming, man. You can't do anything about it.
You're right.
Need a running back that can handle 300 carries a season.
That's right. Right. That's right. You need that guy. You need Rondé. But you guys get what I'm saying, right? So I think when you look at what's next for Oklahoma State, and how do you build off of, hey, fans are going to come out. They're here. They're ready to support, right?
They're wearing bananas.
We're wearing bananas. You're 40, 50,000 people at a football game with a team with 1 win. That is, you are not starting from the bottom. You're starting from where Coach Gundy left it. Some of that's not good, but some of it is good, right? And so I think Cowboy football is always going to be about discipline and toughness. Cowboy football is always going to be about winning on the margins. We're never going to have the most money. We're never going to have the biggest stadium. We're never going to have all these 5-star athletes 100 miles away, right? there's going to be certain disadvantages that Oklahoma State's always going to have, but the formula on what we have to do to win in Stillwater has been proven, and the fan base lights up for a certain style of football, and we yearn for it. And I think if you follow those keys and you don't get away from what Oklahoma State football is and what we've been for years, and what Barry Sanders and Thurman Thomas and what Des Bryant and what Brandon Pettigrew and Kendall Hunter and Bolitnikovs and All-American running backs and those type of guys, that's what Oklahoma State football is. That's what Coach Gundy built. And that's where you get back to when the new coach gets here. That's where you start. You say, this is what Oklahoma State football is. I'm not going to try and reinvent this. We're going to build off of these blocks, and we're going to get back to where we know we should be.
All right, I'm ready to be heard again.
There you go. See, that's all you needed.
You know who's not going to hurt you? Brewster Consulting Group. Because this Reload podcast is brought to you by Brewster Consulting Group. Do any of these sound familiar at your company? Our processes are manual and inefficient with no documentation. Our data reporting takes forever and isn't accurate. We hear all the hype about AI, but have no clue what it actually means for our business. Our projects always run over time and over budget. If so, talk with our friends at Brewster Consulting Group. They help build organizations that run like well-oiled machines with clear processes, reliable data and reporting, and technology that actually works for you. Their team of Six Sigma Black Belts, PMP certified project managers, and seasoned data engineers have delivered solutions that are built to last for local clients like the Tulsa International Airport and Medify. They've also delivered solutions for large international enterprises like DP World. Even better, Brewster was founded and is run by a proud OSU alum and season ticket holder. Learn more about them at www.brewsterconsulting.com or learn more about their methodologies by connecting with them at Brewster Consulting Group on LinkedIn or YouTube. All right, guys, I think I tweeted out cool in response to the uniforms that OSU wore against Texas Tech because nailed the black, white, black prediction, brand logo rather than the curse of Cowboys, but it was a cool look. And that was about it. I think I said cool kind of in jest, like you really waited until 90 minutes before kickoff to release this. Cool.
I don't think anybody's as fired up about uniform release times as you, but I love that you're passionate about it. I really do. I really do. Yeah, it was a nice look. And I think I'm a big stripe guy, but seeing a helmet without a stripe every once in a while, I like that the stripes are sort of the ones that they use more. But then every once in a while, when they do go no stripe these days, I'm like, ooh, I really like the no stripe helmet. So I sort of think it's a nice change of pace, but I prefer the stripe to be the starter.
Let me tell you why I'm fired up about this. One, because it's the same stuff. It's just a different combination. Two, I think it's a huge misstep and disadvantage where if you do release a cool uniform, say 2 days early, like everybody else in the country, you release it on Thursday, people are talking about it on Thursday and even some Friday. And when they see
Justin is people, by the way.
I am people, but there are also other people who like uniforms, believe it or not. Then when they see it in person on Saturday, yes, it has been revealed 2 days ago, but they're seeing it for the first time in person and they're like, whoa, let me talk about this again. I think it's a missed opportunity for engagement on social media where you could be chatting up the uniforms a couple of days in advance. And I don't know why we do it to ourselves.
All right, I'm in there as well. I was in whenever Nathan gave his rah-rah speech. I'm in on your rah-rah speech as well. Anybody got a good rah-rah speech? I'm in.
All right. No, I thought the uniforms looked good. A little unfortunate all these good uniform combinations are getting tainted with blowouts. But no, I thought it looked good. I do think one reason that we're not doing these big previews is because we don't have anything new. We are just recycling some of these.
It's always been that though. They've always just waited. They've just waited and waited and waited.
I know. But hey, this is one of those things that with the new coach, it could be a change in that way. How he wants to get out there and boost and what's important to him. We knew that Coach Gundy could care less about the uniforms.
True.
Like quite literally. Like if we went out there in leather pants and white shirts, he'd have been just fine.
He did design the remodel like back in 2006, that first year that they switched over, he had a part in the design of those uniforms. So he does have some taste. He's got some style to him.
Gundy at
You
New
already
York
knew
Fashion Week next year.
Tuck the sweatshirt into your pants, and the uniforms, and we're all good.
It's classic.
How
Whoever the
about-
next coach is, I need to see it. Homage. Game one.
You don't have to do the mullet, but do
running out last, gray sweatshirt tucked into your khaki pants with your OSU belt. Just do it. You don't even have to say why. Everybody will know. Everybody will know. And it's going to be 100 degrees because it's going to be in August, and I still want to see it.
Amazing. All right. Well, looking forward to the Kansas game uniform preview. Do you guys have any predictions as far as what you might be wearing in Lawrence?
I'm gonna guess white just because it's got to be coming at some point. So I'm gonna guess this is the one. White. I'm gonna say brand on the helmet, black numbers, probably a black face mask on that thing. That's what I'm going with.
Nice. I'm similar, but a little bit different. I'm gonna say white with the orange numbers, and I'll go with Pistol Pete. Well, let's go with the Patriot Pete, the standing full Pete logo. I feel like I've seen some stuff on Twitter, retro Big 12 logo. Seems like Utah is wearing a throwback helmet, at least. BYU, I think I've seen Sailor Cougar helmet, and I feel like OSU is probably going to fall in line with something like that. One of the followers on Twitter had mentioned, he pointed that out and basically said, maybe this is the reason why OSU didn't have a throwback helmet for homecoming. And it makes sense if that's the case. But there's two things with that. One, that stinks if we're going to give up that tradition that we've built over the last 10 years just to use it for another week. Because I really like that aspect of homecoming. And two, a lot of people, it seems like, consider Pistol Pete as our throwback logo. It's one of, I guess, but it's the same one. It's stuck around for a long time. And I've actually seen various Pete versions. Of course, you got the Fuzzy Pete one, but there's another one that was like in between that and the one that we see now, where I don't see that one anymore, but that's the one I remember growing up and seeing. So I would not be surprised though to just see Patriot Pete logo on the helmet this week. So
what I'm in on Big 12 Retro Week, I didn't know that it was like a conference-wide conspiracy. So give me retro brand, actually, if I could.
I'd love it. I would love it. What you got, Nate?
Yeah, so they wore blue, red against Kansas State last week. So I don't feel like they're going to double up on that. So I am going to go retro, but I'm going to go retro from like my era. I'm going to go white, orange with
nice
old school, just classic OSU brand.
Yeah, I like it. You made a good point about the retro stuff. So Kansas, I think maybe their powder blue jerseys are part of their retro look, but I've seen that Kansas in recent years, they've had the retro Jayhawk, the oversized bill and everything. So it'd be cool if they wore something like that. We'll keep track of it and see what we're wearing. We'll let you know about it. You'll find out 90 minutes before kickoff. So
if it makes you feel any better, Kansas hasn't released anything yet. I just looked on their Twitter.
Well, yeah, we got to wait. This is going to come out on Thursday.
I'm just saying.
And then
not there yet.
We'll have something. I'll quote tweet it and be like, good luck, guys. Whatever it is. Even if it's bad. Like, no, I'll be honest with it. It'll probably be a good look. Kansas is up to their uniform game. They have. They got some good stuff now.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. I agree. Yeah.
All right. We have some questions in the chamber to get to. And this first one is very recent. If anybody's been paying attention to what's going on Twitter, got some Colin Klein rumors. So one, I have on my notes here CK rumors, and I almost said Calvin Klein. Shout out to Back to the Future, Marty McFly. But back to what's happening. Colin Klein, what do we make of this? I know, Nathan, you were one of the first people to mention Colin Klein in earlier episodes. Kind of went away from him, and now we're coming back to him.
Yeah,
So
it was like, wasn't even 48 hours after our episode, and I messaged you guys. I said, I cannot believe I left Colin
yeah,
Klein off my top 5.
Nathan has
And
been
then,
fired up about this
and
since it
then,
happened.
yeah, and then all of OSU Twitter was like, "Oh, Colin Klein." I was like, so close. Yeah, but before we get into kind of our thoughts on this, all of us have kind of talked quite a bit, right? And we all hear various things from people that we trust, and we don't for the most part, we don't feel comfortable on reporting on these things because it's not really reporting, right? You want to use your capital J journalist mind here that Marshall's trying to hold us to, and but you get what I'm saying. Like we as a pod want to err on the side of not trying to like get a scoop or whatever it may be, just cause. And so a lot of these names and things like that maybe we've heard, it's just not worth it to us to like try to be the first ones out of the box to be like, oh yeah, hey, Colin Klein or whatever it may be. So I just kind of wanted to get that out there because we see a lot of it out there. It's not throwing shade at anybody, but we've just taken the stance of that as a pod. And I know Carson, with his actual capital J journalist cap on, he does a very good job of that. And I'm sure when he does put stuff out there, his sources are very airtight, and he double checks it like a good journalist should and would do. And so we're probably not going to be that pod unless we have something absolutely airtight. And so anything that we say in regards to what we hear or thoughts on this kind of stuff, some of it is with an education, knowing or hearing certain things, but a lot of it is just, okay, kind of how we feel and so forth. So with that in mind, I think Colin Klein is a very good fit for Oklahoma State, and whether he would take that job or not, when you look at what he's been able to do and his background and who he was as a player, that tough, grinded out quarterback, and then what he's been able to do as an OC at Kansas State and now an OC at Texas A&M, I would be more than thrilled if he were to come to Oklahoma State. He's been able and proven to be able to move the ball consistently in the SEC, which, as we know, they've got athletes everywhere. One thing I really like about Colin Klein, as opposed to maybe some of these other options, is his ability to really run the ball between the tackles with tight ends. And he's done a lot of great things with jet motion this year. And that's different than a lot of the things that he's done in the past at Kansas State or even last year at Texas A&M. So you see an evolution aspect in what he's learned and done as a coach. And I think he'd be a home run. I think he's ready to be a head coach. Now, whether that's Oklahoma State, who knows? But I think he fits a lot of what Oklahoma State needs and wants. And I think it would be fantastic.
Yeah, I co-sign all of that. Things I really like about Colin Klein, and I sort of shared this with you guys last night, is I imagine whenever you recruit the state of Texas as the Kansas State offensive coordinator, I imagine you get in some pretty good doors. But I imagine as the Texas A&M offensive coordinator, you were like people are like reaching out to you with stuff. So just his experience in that, I think that would be, I imagine that's going to help him recruit the state of Texas going forward, which is obviously a big deal for a school like Oklahoma State. And then on top of that, he knows the Big 12 inside and out. He's was at Kansas State for ever playing, it seemed like, and he was at Kansas State forever coaching. And then he wasn't afraid to get out of his shell, and that was like a sort of a big deal when he left Kansas State, because everybody sort of assumed he might just stick it out there until he was the next head coach. So I thought that was a sign of growth that he was willing to go to A&M. So yeah, I really like Colin Klein. I put out a story, I think it published while we were potting here, of like 4 guys. These are like 4 guys that I just think would be a home run hire regardless, especially if Weiberg made them. That meant he went through potential questions you would have about them, and if he feels pretty good about that, then I think the Oklahoma State fan base should as well. But Zach Robinson, obviously there's questions in that he hadn't been in college and yada yada yada. Is the Falcons offense looking that good right now? I don't necessarily buy into all that too much, but I think that would be just massive in terms of university support. And then obviously if Chad hired him, that meant Chad believed in his vision. So I think that would be pretty good. Put Colin Klein on that list, put Alex Golish on that list. Obviously he's 6-2 this year. Before he got there, in the 3 years before Alex Golish got to USF, they were 4-29. I went and looked that up today. And then Eric Morris. And the more and more I look into Eric Morris, and the more Nathan hounds us about Eric Morris, I like it. Just quarterbacks that he's like found and or developed. Drew Mestermeyer, who's a redshirt freshman right now, who like didn't have any offers, and second nationally in passing. Cam Ward at Incarnate Word. He was Pat Mahomes' OC. He recruited or was there with John Mateer whenever Mateer got to Washington State. That's like a lot of hits in a short amount of time. Oklahoma State in the quarterback realm has not had that many hits in a certain amount of time. So the more I look into Eric Morris, excuse me, I've really liked him. And this question was about Colin Klein, and here I am listing three other guys, but I also do like Colin Klein.
Yeah. It's one thing I like also about Colin Klein is I'm a pretty big proponent of this day and age. Unless you have an absolute gunslinger, you need to utilize your quarterback's legs. And I don't even necessarily mean it has to be like a quarterback power, but it needs to be, he has the ability when he sees man, he has the ability to go take off, right? Colin Klein did that just about better than anybody. I mean, and he's shown be able to do that in the quarterbacks that he's coached at Kansas State. And now with Marcel Reed, I mean, he's a phenomenal athlete, but he's been able to bring him along as a passer. And so whenever I've updated the Nathan's hot board that absolutely no one is asking for, my list personally is Coach Morris. You just brought up. My only negative about Coach Morris is he doesn't really have a power run game in his offense, which I think you need to win at the highest level, especially late in the year in conference championships and things like that. So if he's able to evolve and do some of those things, but man, he can really produce some quarterbacks, which you can always win when you have a good quarterback. Z-Rob, Klein, Golish. I kind of got Knowles Monken in there. I wouldn't be upset with either of those. They're on a little bit older, but I think they'd be fantastic hires to kind of stabilize the program and get them to the next level. And then a little bit of a wild card here is a Memphis head coach, Silverfield. All he does is win. He's been awesome. And he just beat Coach Golish last week, right? And then he's got another big game coming up here. And so I've only heard good things. Goodness gracious, I forgot the guy's name. He was OSU, and he was the offensive lineman for the Colts. Charlie Johnson. He was one of Charlie Johnson's coaches, I believe, in the NFL for a little bit, and then he put his stamp of approval on that. So that weighs a little bit with me as well with Coach Silverfield. So honestly, if you're able to get any of these guys to Oklahoma State, I think you're doing really well. And one thing I want to make sure Oklahoma State fans, I saw a lot of this as soon as the LSU job opened up, right? Like, oh man, now we're going to be 6th or 7th or 8th on the list because once he goes and leaves and they take the Ole Miss coach to LSU and then that resets and yada, yada. It's not transitive property here, especially we know how Chad Weiberg goes about his searches. Like, guys, we weren't in the Lane Kiffin sweepstakes. That doesn't affect us one bit whatsoever, right? Whoever LSU hires, most likely we were never in on that coach. So I don't really feel that like this LSU news has really affected us any. The Penn State, I don't really feel like that affected us any. And when you look at it, you look at like an ESPN, like it still has Oklahoma State as the 4th best job. Some of these other ones are silly. They got us way down there. Somebody had Stanford head of Oklahoma State, which is absolutely ridiculous. But I digress.
They have a good GM.
Yeah, he doesn't play quarterback anymore. But yeah, I kind of went on a little bit of a rant here. But the point being is that we don't know. One thing I've learned about Chad Weiberg when he does his searches now, he's done 2 of them. He doesn't leak anything. He has a great respect. He's talked about this several times now. He has a great respect for the process and about what the coaches are asking of him that are interested because they're still playing football games. They're trying to finish on a high note. They've got conference championships and some of them have playoffs coming up, right? So if you get anything of public knowledge, it is almost certainly coming from agents and or the coaches themselves. And it's rarely going to be the coaches themselves. It's going to be the agents because there's not very many agents that have coaches. And so the agents are in a hurry to start this trickle down effect. If I can get one of my top guy out, now I can place my second guy here, and then I can place my third guy here, and then the money starts working itself out, right? You can start stair stepping. So a lot of these things that are pushed out right now are agents and maybe a donor or two that was told something and they think that they understand what's going to happen because they're going to give money. So I would just pump the brakes on anything that you quote unquote hear, or because a lot of it is with a purpose, and it's not going to always be in the favor of Oklahoma State.
And just sort of, you hit on something on Chad Weiberg's not going to leak a whole lot of stuff. I think it was Eric Bailey asked Steve Lutz a couple of weeks ago, sort of like what his process was like whenever he was getting hired. And I think he said like that initial meeting that he had, like a sit down meeting he had with Oklahoma State, there were like 3 OSU people in the room and that was it. So like that's sort of how tight Chad sort of keeps this type of stuff in house. And Chad from the start has been talking about a high integrity search. And with that, he means not letting stuff out. So yeah, if it's up to Chad, if it's up to the Oklahoma State side of things, this is going to get kept pretty quiet for a long time. And also, I'm waiting for it to be somebody like to way out there that nobody's even said yet, and we're all going to be Googling this guy on whatever day this drops. But yeah, it all, everybody sort of seems to be swimming in the same pool right now, but obviously nobody knows who that is.
Sounds like a perfect opportunity for a megapod whenever that happens. We get Carson and Colby all on here, and then we just all chat about it for the next couple hours and see how that goes.
4 hours.
4 hours?
4 hour pod.
I don't know about that. Before we can get to that, we need to continue with these chamber questions. So, W. Eric J.
We've been through one question.
Yeah. Do you all find your feelings?
We'll pick it up.
Yeah. Do you all find your feelings about Z-Rob as the head coach change from week to week based on the Falcons' performance, or is that just me?
I honestly don't, especially with Z-Rob and it being the NFL. It's just like, that's a totally different animal to me. I was trying to not with GJ Kinney for a really long time. They've now lost 4 in a row. It's sort of brutal though. They lost by 1 to Arkansas State, lost in overtime to Troy, lost in double overtime to Marshall, and then got blown out by James Madison yesterday on Tuesday. So Texas State stock sort of dipping a little bit. I think if Kinney is the guy, the fan base would get excited about it, but things are sputtering there. But with Zach, I think it's the NFL. That offense is still like an average NFL offense. It's not like they're just like the worst thing going. Bijan Robinson's doing a lot of cool things. So no, I'm not living and dying with the Falcons results personally.
Yeah, I mean, I think we see it, right? You see it that oh yeah, they beat the Bills. Oh, fantastic. Z-Rob, he's never leaving the NFL. And then like you lose last week, right? You have your quarterback's hurt, your number 1 wide receiver's hurt, and you don't score very many points, and things look a little predictable. So I do think though, and we talked about this a little bit last week, Marshall, if the Falcons coach were to get fired and then they let go of Zach, like it's a little bit of not a great look to be like, hey, fired OC, come coach.
But at the same time, everything could start then.
But then at the same time, that would be perfect timing. So I believe in Zach enough that if he were to continue to evolve, he would learn from the things that he's done with Atlanta and what works. And even this season from last season with Atlanta, he's changed offenses and some of the things that he's done. Yeah, there's some things that I'm not a huge fan of, but at the same time, who's to say, I know we talked about this a couple weeks ago, but who's to say that he would call the plays? Maybe he has a guy that he really likes and he'd have a lot of input and maybe he'd help develop the quarterback, but who's to say he would call the play? Who knows? But I don't really live and die by it week to week. I still feel strongly that Zach would do a good job, but man, guys, the difference between the NFL and coaching in the college, like just the lifestyle for the coaches and their families is pretty significant. So he would be giving up quite a bit to get out of the NFL, and we'll just have to see.
Kind of a follow-up from a couple of different people in the chamber here. First, I want to give a shout out, Kirk. You had some nice things to say. Appreciation on a great OSU pod. And of course, my comment that our pants need stripes. Couldn't agree more. Obviously, I said it. So, thank you for listening. But this is an interesting thing. There are a few questions that are very similar to this. If we bring in Zach or Golish or Klein, what do their staffs look like potentially? Like, do you guys kind of have your finger on the pulse as far as what that might look like?
I have no earthly idea. I think if you're an Oklahoma State fan, you're really hoping Knowles wants to come back to the state of Oklahoma and be that as Oklahoma State's defensive coordinator. But other than that, like I have no clue what staffs would even look like. I imagine a guy like Zach, there may be some guys with OSU ties that have been in the college game that he knows through some people. Like with Zach, I would want people who understand the college game a little bit, experienced college coaches, just in case, like, hey, how does this aspect of recruiting work? Like that can be like talked out with Zach. So I think that would be important. But I also think he would bring people from the McVay tree that he's worked with over the past however many years. I think there'd be a little bit of that too. But as for the other guys, I've got no earthly idea.
Potentially the offensive line guys would stick around because they played with them in the past and they are doing a great job.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was leaning, Justin. I think regardless of who's hired, I don't see 2 completely full staff turnovers in 2 years being the best thing for the program and being the best thing for recruiting and keeping the guys around, right? So I think my hope is that whoever's hired, it'll be kind of a mismatch. Like you bring in those 2 or 3 guys that know your concepts and know how you want to get things done. And then like our D-line coach, like we've just been praising him, right? He's done such a good job with a bad hand. Same thing with the offensive line coach or even Clint Bowen. Like I think just listen to him speak, clear that these defensive players respect him and they want to play for him. I'm not saying DC, but you know what I'm saying? Like keep some of these guys around and you bring in the parts that you need. Again, I've talked about this ad nauseum. The second most important hire for Oklahoma State is going to be a GM in whatever that looks like. So with Colin Klein, he probably already has an idea of what that looks like and what he wants that to look like and how he wants to use that individual to recruit. Zach maybe doesn't know yet, but I do believe that will be shortly after we hire a football coach because Chad Weiberg has talked about that. And so for me, regardless of who the quarterback coach is or who the OC is going to be, hopefully Knowles at DC or something like that, the GM is going to be an extremely important thing for Oklahoma State.
Next one to hear from NY Cowboy, and we have a similar one from OSU Wildman. But what winter sport is everyone most excited for? Seems like wrestling and men's basketball will be both fun to watch, and women's basketball should be good this year as well. And then other than defense for men's basketball, what improvements do we need to see to be able to compete with the top teams of the conference? Roy being nominated for his award is awesome.
Yeah, answering the first question first, as crazy as it sounds, because I'm the biggest basketball guy who I know. I'm not sure that there have been many more people that have consistently been at Oklahoma State basketball games over the last 7 years than me. There are a few who have been to more games than me, but not a ton. With that being said, I'm sort of all in on wrestling right now. I think I said this a couple of pods ago. Like since Seth moved on from the site, since Dakota Gregory moved on from the site, I've had to take a more of an interest in wrestling, and I've sort of dove in with 2 feet. I'm like looking at under 23 world championship results and listening to like 3 different wrestling podcasts. One of them's got like 2,000 subscribers, and I'm like listening to it every time it drops instantly. So I've got the wrestling bug. David Taylor's got me. I'm very much looking forward to wrestling this year. As for what improvements does defense, I think, and I think just meshing. There are a dozen new players on this team. They've talked a lot about the offense not breaking down and it turning into hero ball, continuing to run a fluid offense. Those are things that I think the Cowboys will need to work on. But like I said, it's so early with having 12 new guys, some of which are from overseas and just got to the country. I think as this team continues to mesh, it'll get better and better.
As excited as I am about wrestling and where we're headed, and you brought up Jack's Force winning another U23, which is incredible. I'm really excited to see what year 2 for Coach Lutz looks like at Oklahoma State. He's recruiting at a clip that was similar or even better than Mike Boynton. Obviously, sans a Cade Cunningham at this point. But one thing that he's doing, which I think he's doing a much better job of than Coach Boynton did, is he's recruiting his roster in a certain way. Coach Boynton had a lot of guys with similar skill sets, and they were about the same size, and they did right. And that kind of was like, okay, well, who's going to play? Well, you can't play 10 dudes in Big 12 play, right?
I think if Mike Boynton wanted to, and I sort of believe in this version of basketball as well, so I'm not talking against it. 5, 6, 7 to 6'9" dudes who can do everything is what Mike Boynton was after, and that's what I love in a basketball player as well. So I certainly understand that.
You're right. That is what he was after. But I like what he's doing. I like what he's built from a roster standpoint. I like what he's about. I like the pace that he's trying to play. If you could get a Big 12 top third team in Gallagher, Iowa, after what we've gone through in football for the last 2 years, I really think that place could be alive again pretty quickly. And that's some of the most fun environment you're going to see. So like this early one that we've got against Texas A&M, we've got to show out. Like we've got to be there. We've got to get big and get loud for them. And so I'm really excited about basketball and what we could do there, because I really feel like we're going to score the ball well, and it's just going to be totally dependent upon how a guy like Roy decides he wants to defend. I mean, that's really what it's going to come down, in my opinion, for Oklahoma State. We're not quite as big as we want to be, but it's going to come down to defense and what we can do there. So I'm excited to see what we can do.
If Oklahoma State goes into Bedlam undefeated, which they would have to get past A&M at home, USF's probably not going to be an easy game. Getting high-level athletes to Florida is not all that difficult. Northwestern, they played them in Chicago. Grand Canyon, those are like the toughest games on Oklahoma State's schedule. But if Oklahoma State goes into the Paycom Center undefeated against OU and wins that game, the fan base is going to be very much like be ready to roll. That next game would be December 18th, Kansas City, UMKC. Obviously not a major opponent, but I'd imagine if they can get to that Bedlam game relatively unscathed and then win it, I think the old barn's going to be jumping pretty good.
That would be pretty awesome. I think for me, I'm equally excited, and that's such a cop-out answer, but I used to wrestle, so I'm very invested in wrestling. I was a big David Taylor fan when he was wrestling at Penn State. Just always admired him as a wrestler. So it's hard for me not to say wrestling. But with the environment, I guess, going to basketball games with my wife and kids, it's a little bit different than it is with wrestling. I feel like it's a little bit more intimate for me, where I can see the boys enjoying it and they watch the Thunder, so they understand basketball a little bit more. Whereas wrestling, I feel like I'm locked in on it, and I'm just like, hey, if you want concessions or whatever, you're gonna have to go with mom. Like I'm locked in right now. So it's different for different reasons. I'm just an OSU fan all around. So we'll probably even check out a women's basketball game this year. We got to get up there and see what they got going on. So
yeah, shout out to JC Hoyt, right? I don't want to skip over that. Good job, Justin.
Yeah, like, JC Hoyt, 104-51 over it. It's Oklahoma Christian. I get it. 104-51 is pretty crazy.
I mean, preseason top 25, which hasn't happened in a very long time. Staley Hurd, she's awesome.
She was plus 46 last night.
That's pretty good.
That's crazy.
I think that's good. I think that's good. But again, you brought up Bedlam, like OU's top 5. I think that's. Do the women play Bedlam?
Yeah, same day, doubleheader.
Okay, fantastic, right? I think it's going to be, and the OU, they're going to have a very good men's basketball team too. So, like, those could be, for Oklahoma State fans, like that could be a full day right there. There's going to be some really good basketball, I think, in GIA.
Let's get ready. Next one here from Sherlock. Odds: Haas comes back for the 3 games after the bye. I'm putting at about 6-1 odds right now, as I always do.
I don't understand odds very much, but I think that so I don't know if that meant you thought it was likely or if it was unlikely. I just sort of nodded. All right.
Sounds good.
But we mentioned Meacham's comment earlier in the week. We mentioned a tough decision, a tough conversation is going to have to be had. I think this was like sort of the first steps in saying, okay, maybe it's not going to happen this year. And that's sort of what I've been alluding to all along. I'm cool with him playing. I think it would be awesome to. I watched Oklahoma State lose 42-0. I watched every down of that game. I would love for an injection into this offense, but I just think that there's probably a world where, unless he doesn't like the film that he's got and he doesn't exactly know what his future is, and he wants to come put some film on, I think there's a world where we're taking a medical red shirt for a guy in his situation and this team situation. Maybe it's just like the better decision for everybody. So, well, for him personally. And at this point in the year, I don't think you can really knock him too hard for that.
So before the comments this week, I was about 70% yes, because I felt like even if he wants to leave Oklahoma State, you guys have heard me talk about it over and over. I'm about 50-50 now after hearing that. And now here's where I think one of the hard conversations that needs to be had. If you are going to leave Oklahoma State, you need to play. You are getting hundreds of thousands of dollars. and you're just going to sit of your own will, that doesn't sit well with me.
But also he wasn't expecting this to be the situation. And I totally get it. I understand your viewpoint. It's just like this situation was, I imagine, not totally what everybody signed up for.
I mean, I'm sorry. The Baltimore Ravens are 2-6. Did you sign up for that? I mean, Lamar Jackson better play next week. He's getting paid $40 million. I get it's a different scale, but you understand what I'm saying? Like, that's sports. Buckle up, Buttercup. That's what we do here. So either you're a competitor or you're not. If you're getting paid $600,000 in college to play football and you're just going to walk on me, that doesn't sit well with me. If you were saying, I want to take this red shirt because I believe in Oklahoma State and whoever this next coach is, I want another year. Okay, that's a completely different story. But if you're just telling me I want to leave, and so I'm going to hold on to this, I understand it's the situation. And if you're an athlete, I don't fault him for making that decision because of this is what we've built, and they have the freedom to do it. So more power to you. But as a fan and as an alum and as somebody who's sitting here watching it unfold, it would really bother me if the dude is getting paid all that money and just decided. I mean, he's got teammates now that are in the portal that are still playing, whether I like it or not, which I think is absolutely disgusting. I think it is completely wrong on 1,000 levels that you can openly tell your teammates, yeah, I might not be with you next year, but hey, let's go ahead and roll it out. At least they're out there playing. I hate it, but at least they're out there. And for him to just be like, I'm good, I'm going to save myself a year, I get it. I don't fault him for it one bit, but the situation of it would really, really bother me.
And that within itself is just sort of the issue with college athletics right now. Those are some of the things that just need to get fixed in this whole grand scheme of things. So like I obviously see both sides of it. And similarly, those guys that are in the portal right now, but still playing, it's like, well, what if they hire a new coach and this coach doesn't want me here? And then all of a sudden I'm just ish out of luck. So for those guys, it sort of makes sense to hop in the portal, maybe negotiate a little early to at least know what your options are. So like, I don't know, there's obviously the player side of it. There's the fan side of it. And it's just a mess. And it's sort of all the NCAA's fault for being so slow on this paying players movement. If they got out ahead of this and had some guardrails before all this started happening, the sport would be in a much better spot. It's in a great spot because it's college football, but it'd be in a much better spot if the NCAA was competent in such matters.
If I could talk to athletes that are playing college football and they're in that position and they're wondering if another coach that's coming in is going to want them, I don't necessarily know if that's the right way to think about it. You got to go into the mindset, think about it from the mindset of, they absolutely want me here. I want to be here. I've got the right attitude, discipline, and toughness. This is what the program is about, regardless of who the coach is. I think that everybody's perception of that is a little bit skewed because of how it played out in the media with what we saw from Deion Sanders when he went to Colorado, where he's like, hey, you might as well hop in the portal because you're not going to be playing, or whatever the case was, just encouraging some of those guys to move along because we're bringing our own guy. We're bringing our own luggage, and it's Louis. Okay, so I don't necessarily think that that is indicative of how every coach views the transfer portal, the current players on the roster. I just feel like it's a fresh start in a lot of senses. And in a lot of cases, many of the players that stay there end up going on to have successful careers with that university. So I think that if I could encourage anybody that might be listening, that would be what I would say to you. Just go into it with that mindset. On the flip side of things, it's a different aspect with Josh Ford, for example. He came because he wanted to play for Coach Gundy. Well, more than likely, Coach Gundy's not going to be coaching at any university next year. So you're going to stay at OSU, even though you're in the portal, test the other options to figure out where you might want to play. That's what we heard, was that he wanted to come play for Coach Gundy. So just because Gundy's gone, does that mean you're not going to play? Of course not. Of course not. Same thing with Haas Haney. And this is where we're coming back to the question. He got brought here with Meacham. Meacham more than likely is not going to be coaching anywhere as a head coach or probably an offensive coordinator next year if we're realistic with it. Does that mean he stays at Oklahoma State? Does Haas want to stay at Oklahoma State and go with whoever the new head coach is? Well, if it's North Texas coach, for example, is he going to bring Mustamaker over? Does that automatically mean that Haas is QB1? You probably want to put something on film to make sure that you've got enough on film to where, if that's the case, you have options. Or if you are going to medical redshirt and stick it out, you're more than likely going to be competing for a QB1 position. So tough position to be in, but the conversation, I think, Nathan, you probably went about it the right way. I know it might be a tough conversation, but it also might be as simple as, are you a competitor or are you soft? Like, do you want to play or not? So,
yeah. And it probably came out like, I don't fault the kids.
of course not.
I don't fault Haas for even thinking this way. Right. This is
what, if Haas is thinking this way, we have no
right. Exactly. Idea. Right. But this is kind of my read. When you say tough conversation, these are the kind of things that pop up in my mind. Right. Because everything before that was Haas is a competitor. This is the way he was raised. He wants to get out there and fight and compete. And I think probably if he just blindly asked him, go, you want to play the last 3 games? He'd probably say yes, just from what I gather on what everyone talks about the kid. But just even the fact that it's like, I don't know, you can take all this money when the money was given to you because you're supposed to add value to the university and to the football program, and for you to take it all and not take any value back, that's just not good business. That's not the way business works in any other area, in the NFL, in Major League Baseball, in anything. You get paid off of what you do or what you've done in the past. He's done nothing. None of these guys have. Josh Ford's done nothing. I love Josh Ford. I think he should be a cornerstone piece moving forward for Oklahoma State. I think he's the kind of kid that you want in the trenches, bleeding orange, tough as nails, Denton face masks, all the things.
That's why he was the ambassador for our Big 12 Media Day. That's exactly what you want, of course.
But I don't blame him for going on a trip to Auburn this weekend or being at OU last weekend or talking to whoever it may be. I don't blame him for these. But at the same point, like, guys, there's got to be some thought process here. And even as a university, there has to be able to be some repercussions here that says if Haas doesn't want to play, I don't blame him for it. If he wants to make sure this is the right fit, yada, 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 I'm not going to pay you the last $120,000 when you're healthy and you're just sitting out or whatever that number may be. Like, there has to be something here from a university standpoint, because there is no name, image, and likeness because you played 2 quarters at Oklahoma State. That doesn't do anything. I know you guys understand what I'm saying, but it's just it's ridiculous. And being able to shop yourself in the middle of a season, like, that's just sick. That's just gross.
That goes against his fault.
That goes against but that goes against everything that football is about. It goes against everything. You can't be good at football and do that. I mean, I don't think badly of Noah McKinney because he's done it, or Grant Segrin because he's out. I don't think any less of them. I just think it's gross. Like, this is not what you should be doing. And the fact that, again, Oklahoma State got screwed because they fired their coach 2 weeks earlier than when the new rule passed that kids are able to do it. And it all makes me, it's sick.
Makes me want to puke.
That's what I was going for. Makes me want to puke.
All right, last one here from OSU Dan. Out of all the potential head coaches, candidates Klein, Morris, Robinson, Golish, etc., which coach do you think has the best potential to keep Haas on campus for his 2026 Heisman campaign?
I think all of those guys have an opportunity. I think that, like, just getting sort of the vibe of it, Haas still being around, not entering the portal. Whenever he could have entered when the portal was open, he could have hopped in by now. So I think he's definitely open to the idea of staying around. Boy, you mentioned Morris, does he bring that quarterback over? That's the only thing that I could see as maybe if they've got X amount of dollars in revenue to split, how much do you want to divide that over two potentially good quarterbacks? Or does Morris, if he gets hired, say, well, I know that this guy works in my system, so I'm gonna bring him. So that's the only way that I could see it going a little wonky. But I think a lot of those guys would be super happy to have Haas on the team as their quarterback.
Yeah, I think the easiest transition would be a Z-Rob or a Klein, either both personal playing days as dual threat quarterbacks, and then you've seen what Colin Klein has done with the dual threat quarterback already, and I think Z-Rob is more than capable of designing an offense around a quarterback that can move.
Coach was a Heisman finalist in 2012.
That's right. And as we see, if you watch USF, like that quarterback is an absolute, I mean, he's a unit running down the field. That he's a big dude. So I think any three of those, and then I think Morris, well, I really think that he could adapt his offense if that's what you're given, right? I think any good coach, that's what he's able to do. But I do think part of getting Morris would be bringing Mestamaker with him and hopefully hitting the ground running and really not having to do some of the building.
Now, here's a thought. What if we do bring Colin Klein over and he brings his quarterback over, Marcel Reed? Why not?
I don't know if we got the pocketbooks for that one.
What if the entire Texas A&M offense became Oklahoma State's offense?
Hey, he very well could, Justin. You're not wrong. But I want
it all, baby.
When you go to a bidding war, A&M is not one of the teams I want to go bidding against.
What if Zach Robinson brought Michael Penix down?
That's right.
There is some talk about potential.
Bijan Robinson, Rodney Fields' backfield.
The NBA has a G League, so maybe the NFL sort of forms one. You got Penix. He's a backup quarterback on the roster behind Cousins right now because he's injured. So knock him down to the collegiate level, and maybe you can get some run at Oklahoma State.
There are some G League guys right now who are signing with colleges, and it's driving, like, I think Tom Izzo gave like a quote that was like, "This is insane. How is this happening? Like, I don't understand what's going on right now." So that's not a bad idea. You funnel them into a quote unquote minor league system, and then just drop them down one more.
There you go. Doesn't work the same for football, but hey, guy can dream. Well, guys, we're going to went a little bit long tonight, but hopefully everybody who's listening appreciated that. So if you did, please drop a like, comment, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. We will see you next time. Keep those pistols firing, and remember to reload. Go Pokes.